Hello, friends, welcome back. Today we'll talk about English non-fictional prose during 18th century. Let us try to understand what is 18th century. 18th century is also known as the age of reason and good sense. The famous writers of this age, like Alexander Pope and Samuel Johnson, considered themselves to be the successors of the ancient classical Greek and Roman writers. Therefore, this period is also known as pseudo-classical period and neoclassical age. This period is also known as Augustan age or pseudo-Augustan age or neo-Augustan age after the Roman Augustan age. Famous writings of this age are religious writings, logic and philosophical writings, biographies, literary criticism, journals and periodicals, and so on. Let us first of all talk about religious writing. Anthony Cooper is famous for his religious writing during the 18th century. Anthony Cooper lived between 1671 and 1713. He was 3rd Earl of Shaftesbury. He has written Characteristics of Men, Manners, Opinions and Times. Characteristics of Men, Manners, Opinions and Time was published in 1711. Cooper believed that the universe is harmoniously ordered by the God. Being moral is to accept the things as they are. Joseph Butler was also a famous religious writer during this period. He lived between 1692 and 1757. He argued against deism in his Analogy of Religion. It was published in 1736. Analogy of Religion was an attempt to bring men's belief in revelation. Bernard Mandeville was another writer who deals with religious writings. He did not agree to the ideas proposed by Joseph Butler. He countered him in his essay An Enquiry into the Origins of Moral Virtues. It was published in 1714. Ecclesiastical History of Great Britain was written by Jeremy Collier. Jeremy Collier lived between 1650 and 1722. Another famous writer of religious non-fictional writings was Jeremy Collier. Jeremy Collier lived between 1650 and 1726. His book, Ecclesiastical History of Great Britain, was published between 1708 and 1714. Let's have a look at the non-fictional writings regarding logic and philosophy during this period. John Locke initiated logic and philosophy in 17th century. 18th century was the period of steady growth of logic and philosophy. George Berkeley, who lived between 1685 and 1753, expanded the empirical view of Locke in his treatise concerning the principles of human knowledge. It was published in 1710. There is another great writer of this age called David Hume. David Hume was a Scottish philosopher. David Hume was another notable writer who lived between 1711 and 1776. The famous works of David Hume are Treatise on Human Nature, which was published in 1739, An Enquiry Concerning Human Understanding, which was published in 1748, An Enquiry Concerning the Principles of Morals, published in 1751, Dialogues Concerning Natural Religion, which was published in 1779. To speak of the biographical writings, Samuel Johnson is one of the great biographers of this age. Samuel Johnson lived between 1709 and 1784. Samuel Johnson is popularly known as Dr. Johnson, as you know it. He created a group of men of letters of his period. This group is known as Grub Street Writers. He has written his famous book entitled The Lives of Poets and published them between 1779 and 1781. Along with Samuel Johnson, there was another writer who dealt with biographies, is James Boswell. James Boswell wrote Journal of a Tour to the Hebrides. It was published in 1785. The book is about his journey with Johnson, thus it becomes a biographical work. To speak of the literary criticism, we cannot but mention Dr. Johnson as the famous writer of the literary criticism of this age. The Lives of Poets, written by Dr. Johnson, contains critical information on the lives and works of Abraham Cowley, John Milton, John Dryden, Joseph Addison, Alexander Pope, and Thomas Gray. All these writers are the great writers of their age. His famous work, Preface to Shakespeare, which appeared in 1756, is acknowledged by the world. Preface to Shakespeare was originally named as a proposal for printing the dramatic works of William Shakespeare. Later on, it became Preface to Shakespeare. Another famous writer of this age of literary criticism is Jeremy Collier. He is the significant critic of 18th century. He lived between 1650 and 1726. His famous work is Short Views of the Immortality and Profaneness of English Stage. It was really a famous work. It was published in 1698. One of the famous genres that arose during this century is journals and periodicals. We have to speak about journals and periodicals published during this age. Dr. Johnson produced the journal named The Rambler between 1750 and 1752. It was a bi-weekly. There is another person called Oliver Goldsmith who lived between 1728 and 1774, contributed to many periodicals and journals like the Monthly Review, the Critical Review, the Weekly Magazine, and the British Magazine. His own periodical essay, The Bee, was published in 1759 in 8 issues. We're talking about Oliver Goldsmith. He has also written Enquiry into the Present State of Polite Learning. It was published in 1759. He is also known for writing the essays for the journal called Public Ledger in 1760. His essays were titled Chinese Letters. These were published in the Public Ledger. The most popular journal and periodical essays of the 18th century are those written by Joseph Addison and Richard Steele. Richard Steele started the magazine named Tatler in 1709. Steele contributed 188 essays and Addison contributed 42 essays in Tatler. They jointly founded the magazine called The Spectator between 1711 and 1712. 274 essays were contributed by Addison and 236 essays were contributed by Steele in The Spectator. Steele was assisted by Addison in running The Guardian, which began in 1713. Samuel Pepys' diary was published in 1825. Samuel Pepys' diary is also a famous work during this time. 18th century is also famous for the political writings. Edmund Brooke, who lived between 1729 and 1797, was born in Dublin. He was a political philosopher. He has mainly written about British government's policies in ruling the America. His major works are A Vindication of Natural Society, which was published in 1756, A Philosophical Enquiry into the Origin of Our Ideas of the Sublime and Beautiful, which was published in 1557, Thoughts on the Cause of Present Discontent, published in 1770, Speech on American Taxation, published in 1774, and Reflection on the Revolution in France, which was published in 1790. The another writer of political writings is Thomas Paine. He is also known as a political thinker. He is well known for his political writings. He lived between 1731 and 1809. He was a pamphleteer and a journalist. His major works are Common Sense, published in 1776, The Age of Reason, published during 1792 and 95, Speech on Nawab of Arcot's Debts, and Rights of Man. William Godwin was also a famous political writer. He was also a notable non-fictional political writer of this period. He was a rationalist revolutionary political thinker. He is also popular because he was Mary Wollstonecraft's husband. Mary Wollstonecraft is one of the most significant feminist writers. Her book, A Vindication of the Rights of Women, is considered as a very important text in feminism. Enquiry into Political Justice, published in 1793, is Godwin's famous book. Let us talk about some miscellaneous non-fictional prose written during 18th century. Among other non-fictional prose writings during 18th century, Dr. Johnson's The Plan of Dictionary of English Language is very important. The Plan of Dictionary of English Language was published in 1747. The final version of a Dictionary of English Language was published on April 15, 1755. That is the contribution of Dr. Samuel Johnson to the English language and literature. Adam Smith was famous for his economics thoughts. His book, An Enquiry into the Nature and Causes of Wealth of the Nation, is a book that laid foundations for economic thought. It was published in 1776. After that, Edward Gibbon has also contributed to the 18th century non-fictional prose with his book known as Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire. It was published in 6 volumes between 1776 and 1788. That's all from me about non-fictional prose writings during 18th century. I hope this was a useful video and you've liked it. If you've liked it, please hit the like button, share this video with your friends, and do not forget to subscribe to the channel if you are new to it. Thank you very much for watching.